Welcome back to Plan Life Right. I'm Kevin Ross.
I'm Matt Floyd, and Kevin, 7 episodes in, I feel like everything has been building to this one.
You know what? It has. And let me start with two numbers that put the entire series in perspective, okay? 1967, the average Major League Baseball player made $19,000 a year. The average home cost $20,000 a year. A player could nearly buy a house on 1 year's salary. December 9th, 2023.
Ohtani.
We'll Let's go with Ohtani.
Jeopardy
Golly.
rules apply.
Signs with the Los Angeles Dollars, 10 years, $700 million.
$700 million.
The largest contract in the history of professional sports.
So far.
Yeah. Any sport, anywhere in the world. In the same year, the median home in America cost over $420,000.
So the ratio, athlete salary to home price is roughly the same as it was in 1967.
The ratio held, but the numbers are unrecognizable. Welcome to the 2020s, the decade that didn't just change the numbers, it changed the speed at which everything moves. And if your retirement plan isn't built for a world where everything can change overnight, this episode is for you. I'm Kevin Ross.
I'm Matt Floyd.
This is Plan Life Right.
All right, Kevin, the 2020s. We've all lived this. I don't need the history lesson anymore. It was part of my history. It started with the pandemic, and it hasn't really slowed down since.
It really hasn't. March 2020, the world stops. The U.S. economy loses 23 million jobs in a matter of weeks. The government responds with roughly $5 trillion in stimulus spending over the course of this pandemic. The Fed Reserve drops interest rates to near zero.
And for a while, it felt like it worked. The market recovered faster than anyone even expected.
Yeah, the S&P 500 hit its pandemic low in March of 2020. And by the end of that same year, it was back at record highs.
Which felt like good news.
Which was good news. On the balance sheet anyway. But all of that money, all of that stimulus, all of those zero interest rates, all of that demand coming back online at the same time collided with something nobody had fully planned for.
Supply chains.
That's right. Supply chains were broken. Ports backed up, factories shuttered, shipping costs went through the roof, and suddenly, for the first time in 40 years, inflation stopped being a background concept and became the only story in America.
Yeah, I remember going to the grocery store in 2021 and 2022 and just, standing at the checkout, doing the math and feeling like something was wrong.
Yeah, you know what? You weren't imagining. In 2022, food prices increased by 9.9%, the fastest annual food price increase since 1979.
Since 79. Hey, that was the same year that Nolan Ryan signed that first $1 million sports contract.
That's exactly right. I really hadn't thought about it that way, but you're exactly right. The last time food prices moved that fast, we were back in the episode where $1 million was shocking.
And now we have $700 million contracts and 9% food inflation.
The numbers on both ends got bigger together. That's the whole series in 2 sentences.
Yeah, it is. All right, Kevin, June 2022, inflation peaked at 9.1%. That's the highest in over 40 years. Walk me through what that actually felt like for real people.
All right, let me give you the real numbers here. Gas prices hit an average of $5 a gallon nationally in 2022.
I remember that. I remember every single fill up.
Yes, grocery prices up nearly 10% in 1 year. Rent, which had been climbing before the pandemic, accelerated dramatically. since the start of the pandemic, rent across America has risen by nearly 29%.
29%. If you were renting in 2020 and you're still renting today, you're paying almost a third more for the exact same apartment. I bet it's not a third nicer.
No, it's not.
It's the same place.
And housing to buy, the median home price went from about $329,000 at the end of 2020 to over $420,000 by 2024, a 28% increase in just 4 years.
On top of mortgage rates going from around 3% to over 7%.
So the house got more expensive. The cost to borrow money to buy it more than doubled.
How did people even survive that?
Some had locked in low mortgage rates before 2022.
Guilty.
Some had guaranteed income that didn't shrink when inflation spiked, like pension income, Social Security that adjusts for inflation, annuity income that kept paying regardless of what the CPI did. Some people, the ones depending entirely on a portfolio and a budget, had to make some really hard choices.
Because their income was fixed in a world around them, suddenly wasn't.
Yeah, that's the vulnerability the 2020s exposed. It wasn't a new problem. It had been building since the 80s, since America fell in love with the 401k and the portfolio-based retirement. That they turned the lights on. 2020 didn't create the problem.
And suddenly everybody could see how much of their retirement income was coming at the mercy of things they couldn't control.
That's exactly right. The market, the inflation rate, the price of groceries, the cost of their medication, all of it moving all at once, faster than anyone had ever planned for.
And the people who were already retired when it hit.
Yeah, well, they're living in real time, not as a hypothetical, not as a planning exercise. It's their actual life. Here's what I want every person listening to understand. The 2020s were unusual. 9% inflation doesn't happen every decade, but 3 or 4, even 5%, you know what? That happens quietly every decade without the headlines, without the grocery store shock, just steadily making your fixed income cover a little less every year. The 2020s were just the loud version of something that's always been happening.
Yeah, the silent thief, just louder.
Exactly right, Matt. All right, Matt, I want to come back to where the show opened on this episode. Shohei Ohtani. There, I got it. $700 million. December 9th, 2023.
Yeah, that's the biggest contract in the history of professional sports.
And the median American home that same year, 420. In 1967, the average baseball player made $19,000. The average home cost $20,000. The ratio of athlete salary to home price about 1 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
In 2023, Ohtani's annual value is roughly $70 million. The median home, $420,000. The ratio of his salary to home price is about 167 to 1.
So the athletes didn't just get richer. They got richer at a completely different rate than everything else.
Exactly right. Than everything else for everyone else. And that gap between the very top and the middle is reflected exactly in what's happening in today's American retirement.
Yeah, the people at the very top have guaranteed income. They've got contracts. They've got pensions. They've got stock options. They've got structures that keep paying regardless of what inflation does.
Yeah, and the people in the middle who spent 30 or 40 years just saving and depending on a portfolio and a budget and the hope that the market cooperates and the inflation stays manageable.
And the 2020s proved that hope is not a retirement plan. We say it at least every episode. Hope is not a plan. It's the absence of one, mostly.
And that's the lesson of 60 years of athlete salary, 60 years of inflation, 60 years of watching the numbers get bigger and bigger, while the gap between what people plan for and what retirement actually costs quietly widened. The people who understand that, who built guaranteed income structures, who didn't depend on the market being kind at exactly the right moment, those are the people who live the retirement that they plan for. Ohtani is a guaranteed contract. Jordan had a guaranteed contract. Every athlete in this series, from Nolan Ryan to Alex Rodriguez, got paid no matter what.
And that's what every person planning for retirement actually needs.
That's what episode 8 is actually about, Matt. Next week, we'll bring it all home, what the future looks like, what the numbers might be in 2035, in 2045, and even 2055. And the only answer that has ever worked across every decade, through every market crash, every inflation spike, every world that changed overnight. So here's the 2020s question that every person needs to answer before they retire. If inflation runs at 9% again, or even just 5% for 2 or 3 years, how does that change your retirement?
Because if the answer is, I'd have to cut back on everything, that's a plan that depends on inflation staying cooperative.
And the 2020s proved that it doesn't always cooperate. I want you to go to planliferight.com, download the free retirement income scorecard. It shows you exactly how much of your retirement income is protected from inflation. It's guaranteed to show up regardless of what the CPI does, versus how much depends on the world staying stable.
Yeah, that number, the protected percentage, is the one that tells you whether you've actually planned for retirement or whether you've planned for the best case version of retirement.
The 2020s were not the best case.
Not even a little bit.
And the next decade won't be either. PlanLifeRight.com. It's free. 5 minutes. Know where you actually stand.
Because the people who lived through 2021 and 2022 without panic, they were the ones with guaranteed income underneath them. You know, that's not luck. That's structure. And it's available to everyone who plans for it in time. Kevin, for our advisors that are listening out there, the 2020s handed them something they've never had before. Real inflation, real numbers, real clients who felt every bit of it.
And every advisor who had clients with guaranteed income in 2022 already had the most powerful proof of concept that they'll ever need. Those clients didn't call panicking. Their income didn't change. Their life did not change. While other clients were watching their groceries cost more, their portfolios swing, and their retirement plans quietly erode.
Yeah, that contrast, the client who called in a panic versus the client who didn't. They probably didn't even call in because they knew they had a guarantee. That's the conversation that earns referrals for the rest of your career.
Yep. And if you didn't have that contrast in 2022, now is the time to build it before the next version of 2022 arrives. Come to advisorrescue.net, schedule your strategy call. We'll give you the framework to have the inflation conversation with every client using real numbers, real history, and the income structure that turns pace into peace.
The next inflation spike is coming at some point. The advisors who are ready are the ones already building guaranteed income floors today.
AdvisorRescue.net. Be ready before it matters, not after. Next week, the final episode, episode 8.
The one you've been building toward for 7 weeks.
We look at the future. What do athletes' salaries look like in 2035, in 2045, in 2055? And what does that tell us about what everything else will cost?
Because if the pattern holds and that ratio holds.
The pattern always holds, Matt. The numbers get bigger. Everything gets more expensive. The gap between the very top and the middle keeps widening. And the people who built guaranteed income structures, who didn't depend on the market being kind at the exact right moment, those are the people who live the retirement they plan for.
And the people who didn't?
That's why we do the show, Matt. Next week, episode 8, the final piece, the answer the series has been building toward, and the most important conversation you can have about your money before it's too late to have it. Life happens fast.
Make sure your income's ready for it.
I'm Kevin Ross.
And I'm Matt Floyd.
This is Playing Life Right.